Hi everyone, and welcome back for another lesson. Now, as you've been watching our story, That's Life, you've probably noticed that there are different Englishes, different accents, like British English, American English, Australian English. Yeah, now you can often notice that from the accent. But we don't only notice the difference from the accent. There are also differences in vocabulary. And this is something that I want to look at with you now, especially between British English and American English. So we'll look at the screen and you can see the words written. Because British English and American English, when I meet, for example, an American person, I usually don't have any problems understanding. But occasionally, let me tell you this story. An American said to me once, he said, hey, do you have a moose? And I didn't know what to answer. He said, do you have a moose? Now, in the English language, a moose is either the dessert that you eat at the end of a meal, like chocolate mousse, or it's the animal with antlers that you see in Canada. So none of those things were appropriate for the situation that we were in. So I had to say, sorry, what do you mean by moose? And for him, the moose was a mattress. You know, part of the bed that you sleep on, a moose was a mattress. So I was just flabbergasted. I could never have guessed that a moose was a mattress. So let me show you or introduce you, maybe you know some of these already, especially if you watch the cinema a lot. Some of the difference in terminologies and vocabulary between American and English, all right? Now, look at the screen. In British English, we talk about living in a flat, which is a small house in a condominium. So that's a flat. But the Americans tend to call that an apartment, all right? Then we in England have gardens, which are often attached to our houses or our flats. But in America, they call that a yard, all right? A yard. So in my backyard, you often hear. Then when you have rubbish, in England, we put the rubbish in a rubbish bin. But in America, rubbish is garbage. So they put their rubbish in a garbage can. So rubbish bin, garbage can. If I say in British English, I'm going to town, the Americans will say, I'm going downtown. I'm going downtown. In England, walking along the streets, the part beside the street itself, beside the road, is called a pavement. But in America, that is called a sidewalk. Pavement, sidewalk. We put our cars in a car park, but in America, they call a car park a parking lot. Okay, parking lot. In Britain, we drive on motorways, whereas in America, you will hear the word freeway or highway or even superhighway. All right, so motorway in Britain, freeway, highway in America. Then when all the roads come together, we call that in English a junction. But the Americans call it an intersection. Junction, intersection. When we are traveling in our cars, we go and we buy petrol. The Americans buy gas or gasoline. For us, gas is a liquid air. So gas, gasoline, in British English is petrol, okay? Then in England, we go to the cinema. In America, they prefer often to use movies, go to the movies. Then, for example, if you go to a theatre, and you want to go to the wardrobe, for example, and leave your coats, etc. Very often in America, that is called the closet. So wardrobe, closet. Then if you're in a restaurant, to begin with, we in England have a starter. The Americans have an appetizer. And this is very interesting. When you take potatoes and you fry them, and for example, you have it with steak, in English, those are called chips. The Americans use French fries. Now, in English, when you have a bag, for example, at a party, if you're having an aperitif, we often have nuts and what we call crisps. Now, crisps are very thin pieces of potato, chopped up very finely, and then cooked, usually in hot oil, and put in plastic bags. Now, we call those crisps, but the Americans call them potato chips. So it's very confusing. For us, chips is what you have with steak, and the crisps are the things that you have in the bag, all right? And one more thing, in Britain we talk about summer, winter, spring and autumn, but often in American English you will hear autumn referred to as fall. So those are just a few examples of the difference between British English and American English. But keep noticing the differences especially when you're watching films, because it really is very interesting and it will help you in preparation for when you go to both countries. All right, so good to see you again, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next lesson. Bye.